studio, hitting in the static. This ain't no bedtime story, son, it's prophetic. Encrypted signals from the shadows of the garden. We dig where the dirt got secrets, no pardon. Microphone alchemist, scriptures with a twist. Peep the frequency, seeds in the mist. We drop bars like plagues, revelations in the cadence. Broadcasting truth while they trapped in surveillance. Wisdom with a watchman's blade. Fourth watch style while your whole system fade. Blood moons, Nephilim, echoes in the pine. Sasquatch stomping through the fault lines of time. We ain't mainstream, we ancient stream. Cipher with the prophets, decode the dream. So if you tuned in, better guard your mind. It's broadcasting seeds and we breaking the design. Yeah. Straight from the broadcast studio. Hidden in the static.
All right. We're live. So, Mark, tell the audience who you are and what you do and where they can find you.
Okay, I'm Mark Fiorentino. I'm an independent physicist. In other words, I'm not associated with any institution or college. I'm self-taught. But I've looked it up and I'm allowed to say independent physicist. So
Gotcha.
we're right on target. I have done a lot of physics lately, and especially in the last 3 months. And so I'm a retired guy that used to work for IBM, used to work for Imagol, the Harris Government Systems, and the last job was at the hospital here working in the IT department. But I'm now retired. I had been diagnosed with stage 4 kidney cancer, but I've had what would be classified as a miraculous recovery. I just had my last PET scan, and it's completely negative for cancer. It's gone.
Wow, congrats.
Yeah, my wife and I are sobbing tears of joy over that. And meanwhile, going through that time as I was recovering, I did some work with the AI ChatGPT and made an absolutely stunning set of discoveries. And I guess that's what we'll primarily talk about today, because this is really one of the first shows I had to stop doing shows and so forth during the recovery.
Yeah.
And now that I'm back on my feet, I'm just starting to do shows, and this is being one of the first to explain and talk about these discoveries. So you can find me at www.super-relativity.com, super-relativity.com. And that's the hub from where you can go and read my papers on ResearchGate. I have some links to that. Then all my papers in there is about 30 papers now. It's a lot. But the theory of everything requires a lot of effort. It's not something that's going to be simple.
Yes.
And it, in a way, for me, it was simple. Once you get the right idea, it's pretty straightforward. But that's where we're at right now, and that's my main website, and I have a YouTube page as well.
Okay. So what was for you, like the aha moment that kind of led you to begin formulating this theory of, and it's, would you call it TSR? So, tell everybody
what. TSR.
Yeah.
Theory of Super Relativity at TSR. Well, it really starts a long time ago when I was around 10, and I learned that I had the same birthday as Einstein. Kind of a strange coincidence.
Yeah.
And while I was learning about him and reading about him in Encyclopedia Britannica, I came across the unified field theory, and that struck like a thunderbolt in my mind. And ever since then, I've been reading, trying, and waiting for somebody to come up with the answer, because I was certain that Einstein was right about that. And
yeah,
he was definitely right. And that's how I got into it. But it was casual. Over the years, I would just read. I didn't start writing anything about the theory until the year 1993. And then I didn't have any real breakthroughs until I started writing the book in 2016. And I had a couple of really good papers there. And then the major completion, discovery of the theory of everything, or Einstein's unified field theory, happened in the last 3 months. And that's where we're at right now. Just working on a presentation right now for the paper I wrote on the derivation of Newton's G, the constant G, which turns out to be the link, the key to unlocking the unified field theory door, which has now been accomplished. I have the equations. So this is going to be unusual for you in a way. Yeah, I'm sure you get a lot of guys talk about anti-gravity, a lot talk about UFOs, a lot talk about Bigfoot, and maybe they have a
Yeah,
picture or
right.
something. Well, I got hardcore evidence that you could read, that a scientist could read and decipher, and if they are of an open mind and not dismissive, they'll realize, oh, this is the real deal. And so what you're getting today is the real deal. This is a great announcement that the theory of everything has been discovered. I have the evidence and the papers and the math to back it up.
Amazing. So, like Einstein's unfinished dream, right? Essentially. Um, what did he miss?
Well, his basic idea, see, his unified field theory is different than the quantum mechanics versions we got
Yeah.
today. Their ladder is on the wrong building entirely. They're out. They're never going to figure it out as long as they stay on the quantum mechanics building. Einstein had it right. And basically all he believed in, which was what Lorentz believed in and Maxwell and all the people before quantum mechanics, basically, is that electromagnetism and gravity emerge as aspects of a single fundamental field. That's it. That's what had to be proven. So what he missed was he went, it's a series of things that happened. Basically, it starts with 1905 when he came out with the theory of special relativity, in which he wrote some wording in that disassociated his theory, the special theory, with the ether.
Okay.
Considering the fact that all those equations, the Lorentz transformations, were based and built on an ether theory, I thought it very odd that he would put writing in saying, I don't really need the ether. We're not going to use the ether. We're not going to talk about what causes the speed of light. All we can say is the speed of light is constant, and it's independent of any moving frame of reference, which, as it turns out, I found out that Einstein knew about the Michelson-Morley experiment, so he knew ahead of time, before he released his paper, that they were going to find that the ether could not be proven by that experiment. In other words, it was a null result. There was no ether wind detected. So he wrote it into his theory, and he admits in a couple of speeches after that he knew. So I'm not just speculating about that.
Yeah.
It's known. If you've studied his work, you know that he knew. Put that in there, and that's where he went wrong. The rest of his life, even though he made some speeches for Lorentz, Lorentz was his mentor, and he said in those speeches, particularly the one at Leyden, that there is an ether, but he didn't go all the way and say it's a real physical thing. And he kept it as an abstract idea, and that's how he got the bending of light.
Mm-hmm.
And all the math that he used was based on an abstract idea of a bending of space instead of a real one. My theory comes up with an actual bending of the fundamental field, which is the ether, which should have never been dismissed as not
Right.
existing. That's where he went wrong. He
Yes.
had stayed that course. And well, the other thing, he did not know about the quarks inside of uh, neutrons and protons. And he couldn't come up with a dynamical, even though he had the idea of how to do it, which was the Ehrenfest paradox. If your listeners, physicists or whatever, look that up, that's where he got the idea that he was going to find a dynamical geometry that would explain mass and matter, which is
Right.
what I did.
Right. So why do you think physics mainstream and this is an easy kind of a softball question at the end of the day, but I'd like my audience to understand because they've seen it with other things, just not necessarily physics, right? So why do you believe mainstream physics basically avoided and or overlooked the kind of geometric unification that you're talking about?
Well, it's very astute of you first to realize it's geometric.
Yeah.
It's purely geometric. Why do they avoid it? Because they are all into abstraction. They don't believe, for the most part, space is real. It's an empty void made of nothing, which I can rip that argument to pieces, and I have done many times over. Of course, space is a real thing. It's a quasi-elastic solid, just like Lorentz said it was, and what Einstein thought it was up until the Michelson-Morley experiment, which threw everybody off. So at the year 1905, physics broke. And Einstein, unfortunately, was a part of the breaking of that. Even though he continued to do his work based on some sort of a background field or of something. Something was out there, although he was very careful not to admit there was a full-blown ether.
Yeah.
So that's why, they're looking at the world and the universe, and the key to the theory of everything is somehow it's going to be a particle to particle interaction, like a graviton somehow is making a mass, or the Higgs boson is somehow making mass with particles that are going through those fields. That's wrong. And so now what I've done is proven that, and that mass comes from particles moving, accelerated motion of unbalanced charges moving within the ether. And when that happens, it's accelerated motion, which is like this, or like when you put your foot on the pedal and you accelerate and you pull backward, that feeling, that's acceleration. But in the case of particles, they have to move in a circular motion somehow. That's the Ehrenfest paradox. People or physicists will know what I'm saying. Oh, that's what he's talking about. And look it up. You'll see that that type of accelerated motion causes a contraction of space, Lorentz contraction. And it's like a centrifugal force effect, but that's how mass is born. So it's really about a particle moving through space, a particle to space interaction, not a particle to particle. They're off on the wrong building. It's never going to be about the Higgs. It's never going to, they never even really saw the Higgs. They saw the products left by the theoretical model of the Higgs, but they never did see the Higgs itself. And they never found the graviton. That theory, that quantum field theory, is woefully incorrect.
Yeah, it never made sense to me.
Yeah.
I love how you put it. It's the wrong building.
Yeah.
They have their ladder on the wrong building.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some dogma involved here as well, obviously.
Oh, it's become that.
Dogmatic and property, intellectual, guarding, because this is their theory. And yet, even though it's wrong, they don't want to let it go. I get it.
Yeah, there's a lot of dogma. That's the way they're trained. It's not any one particular physicist's fault or whatever. The whole system is geared. It's like Feynman said,
Yeah.
if you're going to solve the theory of everything, you better use quantum mechanics. And oh, by the way, shut up and calculate. How are you going to solve stuff if you can't freely and openly think about it, analyze it, and come up with the right mechanical model? The quantum mechanics model is the wrong mechanical model. And so it can't possibly work. String theory is even worse yet. And quantum loop gravity, all these things they're just never going to be able to work because they got infinities problems. They have to renormalize. My theory doesn't have those problems.
Yeah.
There's no infinities problem. There's no need to renormalize. There's no fitting constants. If you know what that means, tuning parameters, quantum mechanics has got like 26, 27 of them.
Right.
It's loaded with problems. So my theory, well, how is this going to come about? Because, as an independent physicist, they tend to be very dismissive. I do have my work being analyzed, that one paper, the main paper,
Mhm.
in a journal. I finally got it into a journal, but they're not very communicative. I
Right.
don't know how it's going. All I know is I haven't been quickly dismissed. So somebody eventually will get around to it. I mean, it's a
At
hard
some
work
point. Right.
doing peer review on very technical papers. I wouldn't want that job. I would pull my hair out. It's hard enough figuring out what I got to figure out,
Yeah.
figure out what somebody else is thinking.
Right.
So hopefully that comes about. If that succeeds, it's a whole new age because they will have to realize I presented a lot of extra evidence with the paper to back it up. They will realize they should realize it's the theory of everything.
Yeah.
And so they should formally make an announcement in their journal stating that.
So, can you walk us through this, like in as simple terms as you can for like the average listener? I know you've touched on a bunch of it, but can you do that for us?
Well, if we'll start out with the first statement. Electromagnetism and
Mhm.
gravity emerge as aspects of a single fundamental field. What I did was broke out electromagnetism because right now they're both combined to one. As particles are partially electrostatic, a charge, and magnetic, because as the charges move through space, space rotates. That's the magnetic field. So really, magnetism requires a moving charge.
Gotcha.
So I broke out electromagnetism into electric charge. Every particle has some sort of charge, including the photon, which they will say has no charge.
Hmm.
And that is, again, wrong, because where they get confused is I'm going off a little bit, but I'm going to bring you
Perfectly
back.
fine.
Uh, the photon has got both positive and negative charge, an equal amount. And so they do the math in their head. +1 - 1 = 0. No charge, therefore no charge. Wrong. The photon doesn't do the math. Its identity is +1 - 1. That's what it's composed of. It never cancels itself out. And so keeping that in mind, um, the theory that I have is really about charge is a twist of space. As I described the photon in one of my other papers, it's really a cone shape, not a point mass, not a point charge. That doesn't make sense because you don't have, if it's equal, a spherical thing in all directions, it's this, what's the word, symmetrical. Why would it have a forward motion? What direction would it know to go in if it's just a
Right.
sphere?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
just sit there and float. But I'm saying it's a cone shape. It's got a point. It's wrapping around. at this. My wife is going outside here. Let me put this phone down here out of the way. Um, it's a cone-shaped spiral,
Yeah.
and that's how it gets its direction. And that you have a front and a back now, where the charge starts to increase as it goes wider and wider.
Yeah.
And so you have a negative charge with a slightly positive charge on the other. It's really a dipole, a very small dipole. And so that is how the particles move, because there's within the particle in the center, all of the space, the quasi-elastic solid, which is the fundamental field.
Yeah.
That's the field, Lorenz's quasi-elastic solid. So
I take a lot of notes, so when I'm looking down like this, I'm just
well,
writing.
that's okay. It means you're paying attention.
Yeah.
The it's geometry that is formed within the ether. So the ether is the background, is the basis for particles, which is what we then can see and sense and detect.
Right.
They are geometry. So the electron is a twisted geometry, the photon is a twisted geometry one way and a twisted geometry back the other way. So it's clockwise, counterclockwise.
Yeah.
And these geometries have motion through via their charge. So what we have is a foundational charge, which is the electrostatic field. The magnetic field is not foundational. The gravitational field is not. They are emergent. That means it requires the charge to move. When it moves, then magnetism happens and
Right.
gravity happens.
Wow.
Because that movement causes a contraction of space and a rotation of space, the magnetic field. When a charge moves, it's moving with a spin, and that spin shape causes space to rotate around it, magnetism. Now, gravity, when you're moving like this and you're spinning it at the same time, you got a contraction. So what you end up with is, in the case of the neutron, it's nothing like a picture to help you see. That's accelerated motion, my friend. The
Right.
quarks, there's 3 of them. Look at the shape. It's a trefoil knot. The 3 quarks form this at 99% the speed of light. And moving that fast, I calculated, it will generate the proper amount of mass to form the neutron and the proton. The 3 quarks masses put together add up, in my theory and with my calculations, to the up and down quarks add up to the amount of total mass of the neutron and the proton. And the only reason they do this is because they're moving in that shape, which, by the way, is precessing, which means it's spinning, it's
Yeah.
spinning and rolling at the same time. So you get this perfect sphere shape as a result, because it's doing all that at 99% the speed of light. So what do we see in an electron microscope? A splotch, a blob, a little tiny sphere.
Yeah.
Exactly what only thing we could resolve. We can't resolve the individual quarks, because when we try to pump shorter frequencies, higher energies into, we
Yeah.
knock them out
Knock
of the
them out.
thing.
Right. So you
And
can't
then
see
we
'em.
measure them at the wrong time. So we get quark values for mass that are much less than they really are. Again, they're on the wrong building, and they're doing the wrong assumption and the wrong analysis. There's so many wrong things. It's staggering and
Yeah.
frustrating for me to have to deal with it all. But
I can imagine.
it's going to be hard for them to give up their theory.
Yeah,
their
of
quantum
course.
theory.
It's
It's
kind
going to
of
be
like
really hard.
I look at you like now, kind of like as a, you know who Graham Hancock is? So he's doing the same sort of thing you're doing to archaeology, just kind of
Oh,
throwing
okay.
a grenade in there. Like
Okay.
because they're very dogmatic about what they believe, and this is how things are done, though, right? So
That I'm familiar with.
yeah,
Yes.
um, so I'm a big I've done a lot of because in this podcast space we deal with a lot of high strangeness stuff, right? And
Okay. That's fine.
that's what I'll call it, high strangeness.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
everything from like time travel to wormholes to all kinds of stuff, right? So, but one of the people that used to do a lot of this stuff is like Nikola Tesla. Um, so, and he has said in the past, if you want to find the secrets to the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Now, does that align with TSR? Um, like, could it explain the phenomenon often dismissed as like
In
fringe
a
or,
very basic, in a very basic way, yeah,
yeah,
that's they can align with that limited statement.
gotcha.
Yeah, because there is a frequency involved with this
Obviously, right.
motion.
Yes, for sure.
And there is a frequency involved with the electrons as they go around
Right.
these
I mean, that's the
protons, neutrons.
vibration. That's the
That's the
magnetism. That's
vibration,
the
that's the frequency that we're
perfect.
talking about. And that all comes into play because then the universe gets a lot more complicated because all of this is happening in real time and the math to describe it becomes very intense.
Yeah. So, do you think there's implications with this for things like faster than light travel, things like that?
Yes. In my theory, which I don't talk a whole lot about because of concern that it's going to turn off a lot of people
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the science world,
Understand.
and because it's not healthy. People tend to die when they do research in anti-gravity. Do I understand how it
Yeah.
works? Yeah, I could tell you really, and it won't really break the system, the what do you call it? The dark, not the dark web, but the dark government.
Yeah, yeah. The shadow government.
Because yeah, the shadow government who's keeping the technology secret, just
Yeah, right.
basically two types of anti-gravity devices, the magnetic type and the electrostatic type. Why do they both work? Because they're dipoles. And in my slip
Exactly.
wave theory, at the center of the dipole is a new type of gravitational field. It's linear. In other words, it's running along the middle of the magnet or in between the charges, right in the center.
Right.
And the stronger you make the magnetic field, that field starts to grow. That gravity, anti-gravity field.
Yeah.
So the North Pole is a inward pointing direction of space. It's being pulled in,
Yes.
going in through the middle. It's coming out the other side, outward, anti-gravity. So you'll see people like Bob Lazar talk about, oh, there's a gravity generator. And when I first heard that years ago, I thought, whoa, nobody's ever mentioned that. But as the years went by, it made sense. Um, so it gives that ship a way to propel itself. That's what my slip wave is. That is a very intense paper I wrote with, it's like 50 pages long. I'll
Yeah.
not do that again. Um, really a lot more writing than explaining. I wrote it for the layman, and the physicist doesn't really appreciate that. It's just a lot of reading, and they
Yeah.
don't like reading. They like quick math. All right, from now on, I'll give you quick math, and you're going to have to figure it out on your own if you don't understand what little bits of writing I put to explain this stuff.
Right.
But that's the way they prefer it. So they look at the math. But I can tell you, I gave my stuff to mathematicians, and they struggled to understand it. And they says, "Where'd you get this?" Well, I'm working with an AI here, and what I did with the AI is I gave it my model.
Right.
We chatted, we talked for weeks at a time. Then I gave it axioms, which are laws, rules I and only I possess the complete list of axioms of the universe. And I fed that into it. So now it had a way to build formulas from those axioms, which was something that Hilbert said you should do if you're going to have a theory of everything. You should have it's his sixth problem. Well, I says, okay, I'll do that. I fulfilled that. And then I put it into the AI. And then it started generating equations based on my questions. And then when they weren't right, I would say, you need to consider this in your forming of the equation. And eventually it started coming up with the right answers. And then I was discovering new constants, which
Yep.
then I could use. I was unlocking the doors with the new constants where I was able to solve. Oh, this is beautiful. This is, you're going to love this. Planck's constant. I derived that. Nobody's ever done that. I mean, a real full blown derivation.
Yeah.
And Coulomb's constant and alpha and the mass of the electron, the magnetic moment of the electron, another constant. You name it. Anyone I went after, I was able to derive equations and solve. So I put all that aside because that's a whole neat pile of evidence right there,
Right.
which I discovered the twist energy constant, which is key number 2. There's 2 keys, the gravitational contraction wavelength and the twist energy. With those 2, I can explain the whole universe. There is nothing, there's no, and I went after a problem, the wide binary problem, solved it. The galaxy rotation problem, moving too fast, solved it. Einstein predicting the perihelion of precession, I think that's what the way it is. I always get that botched. But I was able to predict that. I was able to predict the bending of light around the sun
Yeah.
as exactly as Einstein did for both, even a little bit more accurate, matching the measurements even more precisely. So that's a hell of a fluke that I could
Yeah.
use these constants and then rip right through every problem in cosmology and solve them all.
Right.
That's an enormous amount of evidence that puts my theory right on top, above quantum mechanics, above general relativity, above special relativity, above them all, because I have experiments that back up what I say. And anything I pointed at, it solves that problem. And I could spend a lifetime solving all the problems that are out there right now. But I'm focusing on getting the word out right now, getting
Right.
people to look at that derivation of G, because that's the key that unlocks the entire universe.
The gravitational
Yeah,
constant.
because
Yeah.
it ties electromagnetism to gravity, which
Yes.
is the whole point of the unified field theory.
Correct. Gotcha. So you're working on getting it out. Well, now you are, because you have your health back. Now, has anyone that you've actually talked to just outright dismissed all this?
Back before the cancer, I gave the paper, the slipway paper,
Yes,
to,
slipway
and it
paper.
was dismissive. He had some complaints. He didn't disprove it, because if you did the math,
Yeah.
it works. In other words, the math is 4 to 5 equations that you solve for the speed of light.
Yes.
Okay, so, and Einstein worked on this. He tried in his unified field theory based on Riemann metrics and distant parallelism, the unified field theory of his time that he attempted in 1930. He says right at the end, the last 2 sentences, nevertheless, I'm still far away from claiming the physical validity of the equations I derived. The reason for that is I did not succeed in deriving equations of motion for particles yet, because the whole universe depends on that. It's from the motion of particles you get mass, gravity, and magnetism. The universe comes alive.
Yeah.
It's detectable, it's seeable because particles move. So he knew he had to derive that equation. And when I realized that, I says, I'm going to do it. And the equations I got for that, the paper, which is on ResearchGate right now, written for a layman. If you want to go through it, I explain everything, the problem with the Michelson-Morley experiment, that there is an ether. I reestablished the ether, and I say and then I give the equations one at a time. First, I take the wavelength of light and put it into the beginning. It converts it to energy. Then I take that energy and convert it to mass. Then I take that mass, M1, M2, into this is the beautiful part, into Newton's law of gravitation. So, because there's two masses in a photon, there's the positive and the negative mass.
Right.
Negative mass. And you put that into that equation, you get a negative number, which says it's moving in this direction. The space inside of the photon is moving this way. It's an equal and opposite reaction. If I pull and tug space this way within the particle moves this way. It's an equal and opposite reaction. Newton's third law. Simple, straightforward. There it is. I put it into the equation. I get a negative number, which the physicists and mathematicians don't like for the force. But all it really means is it's got a direction.
Right.
It's moving in that direction. So then I get this number, but then it's still not right because R squared underneath the M1, M2, G is multiplying into M1, M2. R squared is the distance, the radius, right? Well, if I change the wavelength, I change the energy, and I change the mass, I get a different answer for the speed of light. And that's not the way it works. That's what nature says. No matter what wavelength, the speed is the same. Purple light, red light, blue light, radio waves,
Right.
X-rays, speed of light. So I had to come up with another equation. I did a tricky thing to get that equation. Mathematicians will punch themselves when they hear it, but that calculates that R underneath. Because if I'm changing the wavelength of something, I'm changing the field right in the middle. And that R squared represents the middle field, the center field. I'm changing the length and the tension in there. And that's what's determining the speed ultimately. So it has to be modified every time I use a different wavelength. So I run that wavelength through that equation, put it into R squared underneath in the denominator, and I calculate and I get the speed of light. I change the frequency and I get the speed of light. I change it. Doesn't matter where I go on the spectrum. I have formulas that match reality.
Right.
There's no controversy. There's no saying, other than you go, that works. You should have seen what the AI said when I showed it to her. I said, you're going to do this, then you're going to do this equation, then you're going to do this equation, then you're going to convert the force to motion, and then you're going to calculate for the speed of light. And when it did it, I put it all in there. I said, now I want you to try it for different wavelengths. And the thing was flashing. And then suddenly all it said was, this is a profound discovery. So it knows, and it's a damn good physicist.
Yeah, right.
And I put it in another one, but this is an amazing discovery. So, but getting a physicist to realize that,
Yeah, right.
they're dismissive.
Yeah.
This guy is from nowhere. There's thousands of these. There's thousands of me out there, guys that tinker around with math and physics and claim a theory.
Yeah.
And I've encountered some, and some of them can be quite nasty if you disagree with them. So I can see why the physicists are very dismissive, because most of these guys, if you give them a little string, a little length there, they go bananas. And then they start insisting, this is it, this is not. And so I can understand that to a certain degree. But what if some guy figures it out? And what makes this possible is that I used the AI. There's where the wild card was. But on my own, I couldn't have derived them. I was amazed that I could do on my own the initial how to get mass theory, which that paper is many years old now, and the slip wave. That was amazing. I did those on my own. But this new theory with all these new constants, I needed help.
Yeah,
And I
for
needed a
sure.
physicist.
So
And go
you're
ahead.
doing this as an independent physicist, right? Frankly, and that takes guts, right? It just does. Now, with that being said, do you see like I don't know, it's the best way to say it, a spiritual component to your pursuit of this truth?
Yes,
And
I do.
is TSR purely mechanical, or does it hint at like, what's the word I'm looking for? Intelligent design.
It's an intelligent design theory. Very astute again. Eh, Even the AI says, you're finding all these constants. This points at an intelligent. It said it.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, I've
It
seen
says
other
this
things that it
appears to
did
be
that
an
too. Yeah,
intelligent design theory because, things are not just random now.
yeah,
There's just not fundamental numbers with no meaning. They're falling out of the space itself as geometry related. All these other constants are used to build the contraction wavelength uh, constant and the derivation of G. There's, science there, but the science here, let me explain it to you this way. This is from Father Rick Wendell, who had a near death experience, and after that, he became a priest. And this is God basically talking to him, explaining things. I went around looking for this evidence.
during his NDE.
Yeah. During his NDE, the God answers the question, there is one commandment for man, love one another. And then he goes into the universe. All of this three-dimensional world is within God. It really does make sense. There is nothing outside of God. Everything within this physical universe has to correspond to laws, and God set those laws. They are immutable as God is immutable. None of this, what we see and experience, is an accident. It is intentioned by God. I agree with that 100%. And that's where, again, I lose people.
Of
Because
course,
some of the people
right?
who are reading this say, "Oh, you mentioned God. I don't like that. I don't
Yeah.
like this whole." They're separate. Science and religion are separate, but they're not.
No, they really aren't. I think more and more people that head down that rabbit hole realize that as well. So, but
You really get into it. It makes sense.
yeah,
Look, I got a lot of spiritual connections that I won't get into unless somebody asks me.
right.
And I never, put in my papers. So,
No,
yeah, I
because
was
they
told by
would.
a psychic when I was 19, the paper is going into the garbage can.
Yeah,
Not much after that line, but it's true. I've had spiritual connections. I've had encounters with my guardian angels. So somehow the two exist. I'll honestly talk about openly about both sides and how they relate in my life. And I'm going to write a book about it. Now that, I have more time, I don't know how much, but more, I'm, as soon as all this paperwork is done, I'm going back to completing this book because
time to get
the only
busy.
part that isn't done yet is the ending. And the ending is going to have to be the discovery, the realization, the acceptance the acknowledgement of this theory, that is the happy ending that I've been waiting for all my life. And I think it's going to happen. I don't know how,
Wow.
because I had given up, even though I had tried writing a book, because I was told many years ago that someday I will become famous for a great discovery, but they didn't tell me what. And then 5 other psychics said the same thing over the next 50 years, but nobody would tell me what. So I just played with ideas, wrote a book, um, and was on my bed recovering from a major cancer surgery and thinking, I still have all this cancer in me. I thought, I'm probably not going to make it. So maybe I failed. And then this whole thing happened with just tinkering around with the AI, and then all
Yeah.
this breakthrough happened. So now I know. Now I know what the prediction means. Well, there was other prediction the night before I got the cancer diagnosis. I had a dream, and my guardian angels used to come to me a lot, but since the cancer, they've stopped, which is interesting. The night before, the next day, I wound up in the ER with symptoms, and they did a CAT scan and stuff, and they saw a really big tumor in my abdomen, in my kidney. And that night, they came to me and they said, you were going to have to fight the monster to save the world. And I woke up and I told my wife, honey, I think I have cancer. And the next day it was confirmed. I had a bad episode, went into the ER, got the pictures done, and it was a moment that I'll never forget. But to save the world, I said, what? Where's that coming from? Because I had nothing other than the book, and the book, it was a theoretical thing. It was speculation, good speculation, good basic theory, but I didn't have the math. I didn't have
Yeah,
the
to be
formulas.
a testable model, it's a total nother thing.
I'm just another one of those guys out
Yeah,
there that has
right.
a theory. So then the second part of that communication was fulfilled months after the operation. And then I said, oh, ho, now we're talking, because these discoveries, this is a theory of everything. This is big deal. Even I can see that. And certainly so could the AIs, because I kept asking, is this a big deal? This seems like it is. And they went into great detail about how big a deal it is. So this is a unique situation we have here. This
Yeah.
is something that we're
Seems to
sharing
be.
together, and it's not like any other guest you've ever going to have on here, because
Probably
I've
not.
really got my teeth into something big.
I have
This
one
is
other question about time. So is
good.
time would you say it's like a force, a dimension, or even something entirely else, entirely in your theory? Like can TSR explain like time anomalies and deja vu, or like consciousness shifts, things like that? What's your opinion on that?
Well, time is complicated, but I'll go through both pieces. First, we go when we say, well, let's see what God says about time. Father Rick Rendell again, does not really exist.
Right.
God is outside of time.
Hmm.
We have a perception of time in the physical world. That perception changes according to our circumstances. Okay, so now I'll describe the circumstances and why we have time here. It's not really real, but we perceive it as real because
Right.
we're within it in the experience.
Yeah.
And basically, time exists here because of a simple equation. Distance equals time times rate. Um, if you do the calculations, if you don't have any distance, real, physical distance, something in between points A and points B, then you have no time, because now time
Okay.
is,
Yeah.
if the scientists were right, and the space was a complete empty void made of nothing,
Yeah.
it would take zero time for a photon of light to get from the sun
Right.
to the earth. But we never see that. It takes about 8.5 minutes or so,
Yeah.
because it's actually traversing something. And that's where time exists. A time interval forms because space is a real thing. Fits and bolts right into my theory.
Yeah. Right.
Again, everything makes sense. So if we believe the scientists who say that space is made of nothing, their argument doesn't make sense when you examine it closely. Because if there was nothing between points A and B, the speed of light would be infinite. And we don't see that ever unless we know how to build a slip wave. But then you have to change the density of space in order to get speeds faster than the speed of light, which can and has been done. Obviously, the aliens are getting here. They're not going just at the speed of light or
Right.
below. It
Right.
would take years to get anywhere.
More than years. I mean,
Yeah, centuries.
yeah.
And that's not acceptable. That's not practical. You need to get, look, you want to get to Proxima Centauri 4.2 light years away, you better go faster than the speed of light, because a
Yeah.
one-way trip is 4.2 years. Your time.
At the speed of
You need to
light.
get there in 15 minutes. And
Yeah.
in order to do that, you got to go faster than the speed of light. So time exists because space exists. No space, no time. Now you go to the afterlife. That is a very mysterious place, so far as the theory of super relativity is concerned, because it appears that it's pure consciousness. So pure consciousness is outside of time, because it doesn't, if there's no associated physical energy with it, it's
Yeah.
spiritual energy, which I couldn't even begin to
No.
describe.
Gotcha.
That is all outside of
No,
time. So
no friction.
it could look at any point. So you hear near deathers talk about, I went into the past and saw this, I went into outer space and saw that. It's a different realm with different laws set by God. So it's a different dimension entirely. So how do people do time travel and stuff like that? Well, I talk about that in my book, and that requires you to manipulate space in a certain way, building a stargate. And then since here's the key, this is very important. Please pay attention to what I'm about to say. All time is happening at the same moment. That makes time travel possible. All you have to do is find a way to get from your dimension, your space, into another space, another dimension, through a stargate, by manipulating space in a way I don't really even understand yet.
Yeah.
So that um, you can,
Wormholes and stuff like that.
yeah, you can. Well, it's a mathematical term. I don't know how to say it right now. Uh, but you transform from one time to another, backwards or forwards. And I don't really like going backwards in time. It, it morally bothers me that
Yeah.
somebody would want to go back in time and change
Anything.
things.
Yeah.
Card laid is a card played. Don't go back and change things. Um, and I think it's probably possible, and our government may be doing that right now. I don't have any direct evidence of that.
I mean,
All I know is that
there's
if you're
some
going to do
things,
time
but
travel, you're going to have to make something move faster than the speed of light. In other words, like you have a Stargate, you use photons, you pump them in, you change the field with them, which changes permittivity and permeability. It creates a higher tension, then the wavelength of the photons compresses and they accelerate beyond the speed of light. And that's somehow shining that into that area at a particular frequency or of some sort should open a gateway to another time. That's as detailed as I can get without having people working for me and building the thing and testing it out. That's as far as I can go. I'm not really that interested in time travel because I'm
Yeah,
interested in this time,
absolutely.
fixing things here, getting things right so the future is better. So that's how I'm time traveling, linear, right straight
Linear
through.
time travel. um, so this podcast is called Broadcasting Seeds, and per the name, one of the things I like to do is get the guests to speak directly to the audience and plant some seeds. So I kind of look at it as like if you could speak directly to like a young physicist or tinkerers or explorers, right, out there, what advice would you give them?
Well, I have that all ready to go. Um, if you know a physicist, if you are a physicist, if you are a scientist who has interest in the theory of everything and seeing that happen in your lifetime, go to ResearchGate, look up Mark Fiorentino, and read my papers, and then bring them to the attention of physicists at your school, wherever you are located. Point it out. Tell them what this means. Tell them it's a big deal. Tell them to give it a chance. Try, read these things. You'll see that there's waiting for humanity is a great discovery that can change everything for the better. And so that's what I would say for the people listening out here. If you know a scientist, you know a physicist, you know somebody that knows somebody, get this information to them. Tell them to go to ResearchGate, look up Mark Fiorentino, and read those papers, and have scientists read them.
Yeah, and I'll have your links all posted in the show notes and all the places. I'll be sharing this stuff far and wide, actually.
Excellent. That's why I'm doing this.
Yes. So again, you've got ResearchGate, but where else? Where else can people find like the average listener engage with like your books, talks, experiments, all this stuff?
YouTube page. I have some of my shows in the past. If you want, I'll put this one on there. It's up to you.
Sure.
I put in my YouTube page. What else is there? The YouTube page. I have a blog. I need to update the blog with some more stuff.
You're getting there, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I got a lot to update, by the way. I may even put the papers there as well, too, with extra explanation. YouTube, my webpage, and I have a Facebook page, but I very rarely put anything on the Facebook page. I don't do Reddit. I tried Quora. There's too many trolls.
Yeah.
There's too many nasty people out there that you try to have a conversation and they'll try and turn it into a name calling match. So
Yeah.
those outlets are closed off. I don't bother with them. There's too many angry people there. I'm trying to get it into a journal. That's the big push.
Okay.
You get one published, it
Yeah.
opens the doorway.
Does. I'll do everything I can to help you do it.
Okay.
I mean, I'm nobody special, but I just happen to know people.
You
so
never
we'll
know.
See. You never know.
It could be the
really
break that I'm waiting for.
So I kind of want to end with one like last question, and
Okay.
it's kind of it's a big one. I mean, what does with TSR being true, for all intents and purposes, what does that mean for humanity's place in the cosmos?
I think it's really, you look at it, this information, when you reach this point, it's a major point in your civilization. You evolve.
Yeah.
At the basic level, this is the seed that will lead to the evolution of humanity. Because you get this knowledge, which in part will be able to help people build hovercrafts that can go at enormous speeds. You can travel around the world in an hour
Well,
instead of 2 days.
game changer.
You could go to going to other planets will be a common thing because we're going to be able to break the light speed, and not just by a little bit, by tens of thousands of times. And that's what you need to do in order to get across the galaxy. To get to other galaxies, you have to go hundreds of thousands of times, or you have to go interdimensional, which is a topic I touch a little bit on in my book, but that's advanced. That's highly advanced
Yeah.
work that I wouldn't, my explanation would be highly speculative, and I haven't even attempted to try to write papers on it. But I believe it is doable interdimensional travel. That's the fastest way.
Yeah,
Because
for sure.
you start here and you go in, you got some other set of grid coordinates in here that are markedly different. You travel some distance, it's really equal to a great distance in this realm. You come out the other side and you're there. And it's like instantaneous. You should see what I could tell you this. If you see something you think is interdimensional, you'll see a green mist as it comes out. That's an indication that there's a strong magnetic field at work.
Okay.
And there's the light is bending within the spectrum, and you get that kind of a greenish color. That's the only trick that I could see. You would see like a rainbow effect sometimes, as well as when you're going through it, or see something coming in or going out. And you could probably do it with high magnetics. That's basically it.
Making my head explode a little. I mean, I love this stuff, and I know enough to just like get in trouble. Does that what, do you understand what I mean? But I think this is what I would call I was a grunt in the military. This is a door kicking moment where we're possibly kicking a door open to something completely new. So at least that's how it feels to me, just because it makes sense. And so many things don't, and this does. So
yeah, this apologize.
no worries.
I'm come from being a grunt too, and I've lived a small life up until this point, and I was happy with it.
Yeah.
For the most part. This was just a curiosity and something fun to do and think about. And then it just suddenly happened. And so then I had to decide, what am I going to do about it?
Yeah.
I did all the math work and all these things. And then now I got to get it in front of people who can peer review it and accept it. It's my obligation. Nobody else is going to do it.
Yeah.
But my background is pretty ordinary as well.
Yeah.
Not, I had a little bit when I was young. The school said that I was a genius because I had very high grades. And they told my parents, which never told me. They never told me.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
They,
Right.
all I knew is they were taking me to Ivy League schools to see the campuses when I was 10 years old. And I was, why?
Yeah.
Why are we going here? It's
Right.
pretty here, but they were, took me to Princeton and some of the other schools in the area. And but I was just a kid. And all I had was the kid thoughts. I'm going to play. I wanted to.
Yeah. Of course.
So that I share, being just an ordinary guy. And I always will be that. That's not really going to change.
Absolutely. Well, I've totally enjoyed this, and I think maybe we should do it again in the very near future. Maybe when some
Sure.
things happen, some progress happens. Maybe
Things
we
are
can.
happening,
Yeah,
weekly.
absolutely. So
Within
we
a few
can
weeks.
definitely do an update.
Yeah.
So I greatly appreciate you coming on.
I enjoyed it. It was a great conversation, and I think we got a lot of good information out there.
For
That's
sure.
what people are looking for.
It is. You're right.
And they're looking for some good news. Right now, we can use some.
Absolutely.
Controls the war.
So, all right.
But first, he must silence the noise.
Hey, yo. Straight from the catacombs where the scrolls was hidden, where monks chant verses and the watchman's risen. Broadcasting seeds, son, it ain't just a show. It's a frequency shift from the realm below. Yo. Encrypted speech from the outer courts with a bloodline of kings and celestial reports. Got Nephilim tech in a backpack word, while these reptile suits try to censor the word. Yo, I step through portals with the mic as my torch, dropping sermons so raw they send drones to the porch. They surveil what I spit, can't silence the flame. Got angels in camo with encrypted names. We talking black ops and black robes, fallen stars with zip codes, temple scrolls and time codes, beasts with 10 horns in stealth mode. From Mount Hermon to the Grand Canyon vaults, where the Smithsonian buries humanity's faults. But we dig with the pen, slice lies with the flow, like Elijah on the mountain when the fire hit the show. Yo, this is spiritual warfare in stereo, holy scripts flipping through the technicolor burial. No fiction, just friction between realms, dropping bars like prophecy with angelic helm. So when you tune in, just know what it is. It's ancient war drums, not a podcast for kids. It's the Watchtower gospel, wrapped in grit, broadcasting seeds. We the last ones legit. Straight truth, no fluoride filter. Ghost in the wise with the soul of a builder. Welcome to the front lines, the kingdom cries out. So grab your armor, your mic, and cast the doubt out.
I want to sweat your homes, that the tattoo species sitting in his prisons. It's water, wet and tired,